An interstellar visitor breaks before it breathes and rewrites our Comet script. We move together at a bedtime pace because this puzzle rewards patience and soft attention. The object we speak about tonight carries the name 3I Atlas, and it declined to follow the familiar comet script. Many picture a comet warming near a star and breathing out volatile gases that build a bright veil that thickens night by night. Instead, this traveler came apart early while the breath stayed quiet, and that reversal matters. It matters because when the sequence changes, the internal recipe and structure are sending us a message that is worth hearing. The first firm line is calm and clear. 3I Atlas is an interstellar object, and that means it is ejected from another star and is only passing through our neighborhood. Its path does not close into a loop, so we read in the motion that it came from elsewhere and will not return. A second firm line is about expectation that grows from many years of watching classic comets that behave like very loose snowballs when sunlight arrives. Ice loosens and gas vents, and fine grains ride outward to paint a soft halo around a bright core. Our guest complicated that picture by breaking first and breathing later, and by breathing less than a standard scene would suggest. We will use one careful word, and we will define it clearly for shared footing. Metallicity means the share of elements heavier than hydrogen and helium in an object's makeup. In plain terms, it is the heavy part of the recipe, and it includes iron-rich grains and sturdy compounds that do not leap into gas at gentle warmth. When you hear high metallicity in this story, think of a mix that holds more heavy ingredients than a classic fluffy comet, and a mix that can manage heat differently. Heavy ingredients tend to store warmth and move it inward like a slow tide, while light frosts change quickly at the surface, a difference that sets the stage for a quiet kind of drama that favors internal stress over surface fireworks. Why would a comet begin to fall apart before it ever acts like one? This short question opens the door and invites us to step in without hurry. We will not answer with a single cause because nature rarely gives us one lever to pull. We will answer with a path of how, because. How is the friend of calm understanding and good sleep. The path runs through heat, through structure, and through the bonds that hold grains together when light arrives. Each step feels familiar because it echoes how everyday materials warm, swell, and sometimes crack when their outsides and insides change at different speeds. Start with sunlight that warms from the outside inward, like morning light on a window that heats the glass while the room still feels cool. The surface warms first, and if the outer shell contains grains that can sinter the shell, may tighten as tiny bridges grow between particles. That tightening can slow the flow of heat and seal small pores just as deeper layers begin to expand. Weak bonds far below can slip as old seams awaken, even though those seams do not yet reach the surface. If cracks do not connect to daylight, there is no easy path for gases to escape. Internal stress then leads the dance, and the result can be structural failure without a loud exhale of vapor. Could metallicity make a cold traveler behave warm? This short question holds a testable idea that is simple enough to rest in the mind. Heavier grains and sturdy compounds store heat and share it slowly. And anyone who has lifted a warm stone after sunset knows that mass can keep warmth. A body with a higher heavy element share might absorb sunlight and carry the warmth inward like a slow tide, rather than flashing off a bright surface breath. That would delay the moment when vents awaken at the surface and would shift the timeline so that breaking arrives before bright activity. The idea is not exotic, and the comfort here is that it can be explored without grand claims. Up to this point, we have looked at causes. Now, we will treat the order of events as a quiet map that shows what fails and what stays hushed. The heavy part of a recipe does more than hold heat. It sets the pace for how stress builds, and it sets the balance between brittle and tough in a matrix of grains and ices. If the interior of 3I Atlas carries more heavy grains than a classic comet, the warmth from sunlight may be buffered and spread with patient steadiness. The surface would seem quiet while the interior changes, and a match between stress and structure would decide what breaks first. When inner seams open, blocks can shift, and the whole body can fail even while gas remains shy. The grounding line here is firm and honest. We do not see a metal core. We see behavior that fits a higher heavy element, share. A mental example can help fix the idea without any tools. Imagine a layered cake warmed from the outside by a quiet lamp. The thin surface crust toasts and stiffens and may even seal tiny pores, while beneath it, a thick layer softens and swells as heat seeps inward. Grain by grain. If a seam inside opens, the cake can slump or crack before you ever see steam lift away, and that sequence leaves a quiet mark on the plate. Replace steam with gas and crumbs with dust, and you have a picture for a body that fails softly. The key is not the pastry. The key is the order in which changes happen when heat walks inward, and that order leaves clues we can read. If this bedtime pace is helpful, you can subscribe so we can meet here again. It might be that our traveler is a dark comet from another star's distant cloud, with a crust baked by long exposure and an interior that manages heat with a heavier recipe. The phrase dark comet is only a soft label here for a surface that reflects little light and for volatiles that are slow to appear when warmed. The grounding line follows at once and keeps our pace calm. We confirm only that 3I Atlas is interstellar and that its observed behavior departed from the common comet story we expected to see. We do not name a parent star, and we do not invent a history that the light does not show. We hold gently to what can be read. A small curiosity helps us turn the page without raising the pulse. What breaks first, ice, rock, or our labels? The answer matters, because failure order hints at what lies within, and a hint about the inside is more precious than a headline about a tale. It tells us whether the story is about bond strength, or about how heat flows through pores and veins, or about both at once. It gives us a way to compare travelers without rushing to grand claims. If we listen with patience, the order sketches a cross-section in the mind that we can revisit as often as we like. Ice can bend a little and then give way in a manner that is almost graceful, while dust can carry a load when packed and then slide when a ridge fails. Refractory grains can lock heat in place and share it slowly, building stress under a shell that looks calm from afar and even looks a little stronger as it warms. A brittle crust might hold even as an inner seam tears, and that mismatch between a calm skin and a busy core is the signature of a body with unusual internal balance. When that inner seam opens, blocks shift, and the shape can fail with a hush. If vents do not reach open space, gases have no simple path outward, and the visible signs stay modest. A quiet contradiction lives in the timing of sunlight and response, and this is where patience earns interest. Many imagine a rising swell of activity as a visitor approaches a star, as warmth frees gases and pushes dust into view. Here, the swell stayed faint while disintegration led the way, and that asks us to think in terms of stress more than pressure alone. A higher heavy element share makes that pattern more likely, since heat would travel differently and small pockets could warm without venting. The body would come apart under strain rather than under a rush of escaping gas, and the audience would witness a quiet collapse rather than a bright outburst. The grounding is simple. The gas signature remained modest while dust told the story. And this sits alongside the early breakup, and together they make sense when we picture a refractory rich mix. Could the quiet gas compared to dust be a clue to interior architecture? This question invites a closer look at how the night scene feels to the eye. Gas glows in lines and gives shape to a soft halo, while dust reflects sunlight more simply and fades faster with distance. when dust dominates the scene, feels hushed, even while mechanics are busy, like a quiet change of stage behind a curtain. Our instruments read that hush as subdued gas beside reflective dust, and our minds pair that hush with the breakup sequence. The consensus thread remains in view. We see a behavior set that fits a refractory rich mix without claiming an exact blueprint. We keep our questions local and our claims modest, and that is part of the comfort of this hour. We do not claim advanced technology, and we do not claim a signal, because mystery does not need those ornaments to hold attention. We do not name a parent star, because not knowing where is an honest position when paths are open and brief. We hold to what is written in the motion and in the light. It is interstellar. It is ejecta from another star. It is a traveler that did not follow the standard comet story, and that is enough to carry a calm case for a cousin class that we may one day adopt if more cousins arrive with similar habits. A gentle mystery lives at the edge of our knowledge, and we will mark it and ground it in the same breath. One possibility is that layers formed in a region where carbon dioxide and heavier carriers were favored, and that such layers became a thermal buffer that delays classic volatile release. The grounding line that follows keeps the floor under our feet. We do not know the exact birthplace, and we are not asserting a special mechanism beyond what the behavior supports. We simply note that a higher share of heavy ingredients could explain a calm surface while stress grows inside. The evidence that sets this scene is the early breakup and a quiet gas story during key windows. Let us return to the comfort of how, because how is a steady companion. Heat enters. The surface tightens. Pores seal. Beneath the shell, grains rearrange, and bridges form across gaps, and those bridges can carry stress without letting gas slip past. A crack then opens along an old weakness, like a faint line in tempered glass that finally accepts a new state. The crack does not reach daylight, and so nothing hisses. Yet geometry changes and weight shifts, and the body loses coherence. To the watcher, the sound is silence. A small operational example in the mind can round this out gently. Picture two stones set in a loaf of compact snow, and picture a lamp that warms the loaf from one side. The stones carry warmth deeper and slower than the snow, and the snow near each stone softens from within while the outer crust stiffens. A quiet cavity begins to form around each stone, and the crust above sags. The loaf can crack before any plume appears, and the crack tells you where the structure chose to yield. Translate stones to heavy grains, and you have a map that does not need to shout to be heard. We can also phrase this as a friendly contrast between pressure-driven opening and stress-driven failure. In a classic case, gas pressure finds a path, and bright activity blooms as vents connect to the sky. In a stress, first case structure yields before pressure rises enough to carve paths, and so dust can lift without strong gas lines. That quiet gas signature records that choice in the night. The team watching the sky reads that balance as a signature. The reading does not demand a metal heart. It prefers a matrix with more heavy carriers than a soft snowball would hold. If this bedtime pace is helpful, a quick like and subscribe helps us find each other again. With that map in hand, we widen the scale. If this is not a classic comet, what family of behavior would welcome a traveler like this? Another question waits near the boundary of our patience. If it is not a normal comet, what family would welcome it? Naming can wait because names arrive best when patterns are steady. What we can offer tonight is a gentle sketch of family traits that help our attention. The sketch begins with the open path that marks an interstellar visitor and continues with the early failure that arrives before classic breath. It includes the hush of gas compared to dust during the warmest windows, and the way a higher heavy share could slow the movement of heat. With these traits in mind, we can watch the next visitor with a calmer eye. Caution in naming is not caution in wonder. It is a way to let wonder last through the night without jangling nerves. A fast label can feel like control, while a careful label is a promise to return with better light. When we choose to say could or may, we are not dodging. We are tuning our voice to match the strength of the lines we can actually read. Those lines are the open path that marks interstellar motion and the non-standard breakup that arrived before a strong volatile rise and the measured hush in gas. Together they are enough to support a calm proposal for a cousin class that acts like a comet in outline, but organizes its heat and mass differently. Why does this matter while you sleep? Because a single outlier can reset how we listen to the night with care and respect, and that reset is gentle and patient. It reminds us that labeling is not control. It is attention. Attention improves when we let behavior set the frame rather than our wishes. This traveler suggests that we might read Comet as a family of behaviors rather than a single recipe, and that shift makes room for cousins that fail before they sing. The comfort is that we can hold this shift without urgency. We can let it settle in the background like a star that rises slowly. We also keep a second mystery close, and we handle it with the same honesty. It might be that a crust baked by long exposure formed a lid that held gases back, while stress gathered beneath, and that the interior carried enough heavy grains to guide heat inward on a slow path. The grounding answer remains steady. What we know is the motion that marks an interstellar visitor, and the early failure and the low gas-to-dust story. We do not know the exact structure, and we do not claim to. We hold the door open for future readings that could firm up or revisit this picture. Here is a soft line to breathe with. Maybe the label we use changes how we look more than it changes what we see. If we approach a new traveler expecting only a bright veil, we might miss the quiet map written by timing and stress. If we expect a family of behaviors, we will watch order and balance as closely as brightness. In that shift, our instruments do not change. Our attention does. And in this hour, attention is our only tool, and it is more than enough. Now we step toward a wider window, and we do so without drama. A calm macro awe arrives when a pattern clicks into a bigger picture without forcing a twist. Perhaps we are meeting the first clearly described member of a steadier interstellar family, and perhaps that family prefers heavy carriers that make warmth walk slowly and make failure arrive before song. The image is not a shout, it is a widening. You can feel your mind tilt and settle as if a room makes new sense after a lamp is moved. One possibility is that this branch of travelers comes from regions where heavy elements and carbon dioxide shaped the early mix, and those regions seeded a population that drifts between stars. The grounding follows at once. All that is confirmed is the interstellar path and the observed behavior. We use could and may because nature owns the rest. If you would like more nights like this, a like or subscribe is enough. We will keep this calm pace. Let that picture rest while we return to the comfort of small certainties that hold through the night. This traveler is interstellar. It is ejecta from another star. It broke in a non-standard order by failing early relative to when classic volatile activity would be expected to rise. Its spectra told a story of subdued gas beside reflective dust during key windows. Each of those lines is modest and each holds steady under gentle questioning. Together, they invite a mental category that is both careful and useful. A traveler can mimic a comet in outline while organizing heat and mass in a way that makes collapse precede chorus. If you like to practice attention, you can do so right now and without any tools. Picture sunlight as a slow river of energy that touches a dark crust first. Picture that crust tightening and the pores shrinking as bridges form between grains. Picture deeper layers that receive warmth later and swell in response. Now picture an old seam that accepts this new state by opening with a quiet decision that does not reach the surface. The body shifts, blocks settle. Dust rises a little in the hush. Gas stays shy. You have just rehearsed the idea that order can be a map. One more question closes the middle gently and points us toward the shore. What would change tomorrow if we treat Comet as a behavior family rather than a single recipe? Very little in our tools, because the sky is patient with our instruments. A great deal in our attention, because we will cherish the timing of events as much as the brightness of plumes. We will notice when breaking leads and when breath lags, and we will ask what that order whispers about structure. We will give more weight to that subdued gas signature when it walks beside an early failure. Quiet metrics will gain warm respect. We are almost home, so we gather the threads with care, and we do not pull them tight. High metallicity does not mean a gleaming metal heart. It points to a mix with more heavy carriers than a soft snowball, and to a matrix that handles warmth with a slow grace. That slow grace can produce a calm surface and a busy interior, and can tilt the story towards stress-driven failure. Early breakup and modest gas are then partners rather than rivals. The idea does not require grand claims, and it does not ask for a stage whisper. It asks only for patient comparison across visitors. We keep one last mystery for the closing act, and we handle it as gently as the others. It might be that we are looking at a primordial artifact of early system building where heavy elements and certain ices gathered into sturdy aggregates that prefer silence over flares. The grounding returns at once, so we rest on it. We do not know which star built this traveler, and we do not need to know tonight. We know that it came from elsewhere, and that it broke before it sang, and that its breath was quiet compared to its dust. That is enough to sleep on with a small smile. With that, we can offer a closing clarity that leaves the window open for tomorrow. This object may be a first clear member of a steadier interstellar family, and if the family is real, then patience will reveal its shape. Our words can make room for cousins we have not met. Our attention can treat Comet as a behavior pattern rather than a strict recipe. Our calm can hold both wonder and restraint in the same hand. We can sleep well, knowing that we are not closing a door. We are opening the pace at which understanding arrives.